All right, so we are going live with SA Anon from South Africa, South African Anon. Welcome to this little spontaneous conversation about where things are at in the world.
Hi, Amanda. Yeah,
Hi.
thanks. Chatting to you again. Good to hear your voice. And yeah, let's see where this goes.
So I met you, I heard about your book some time ago.
Yeah.
You write a fabulous book that
Thanks.
is about the phenomena called Q. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about what is Q. Some people don't know. I mean, most people know by now that are paying attention, but maybe why don't you just talk about what is Q or who is Q?
Yeah. Okay, just maybe a little bit of background, and I've done the detail in the book, but the book is more about my journey actually searching for the truth. I mean, it started off with, and I think that's something everybody can associate with, that, you know, you just get this feeling something is wrong in this world. It might be the financial side, it might be the farmer side, you might be, you know, working with the elderly, whatever, and you just realize people are getting more and more sick, and they're not dying of general causes anymore. It's more about illness, whatever. So there's something that triggers it in you. But at the end of the day, for whatever reason, you do realize something is wrong with it. And I guess that's where the journey started, and also where I started the book, is actually looking for, just trying to find and make some sense of it all. And the one thing that I got stuck into, that's always been in my mind since it happened, was obviously the 9/11 attacks in the US. And I think that's where it started for me as well. So I was actually looking for the truth and finding, but there's so much disinformation out there, you know, but at the end of the day, long story short, I was busy on this. I actually came across this website where if you go to certain of the actual, let's call it chat rooms for now, there were actually people looking into it and finding the truth behind it. And
oh, that's interesting. So it all started with you questioning 9/11, and then that kind of led
that's
you.
basically
that
where it
led
started.
you. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. So when was that? When did you start looking into that? Was that at that time or later?
It was actually, I would say, in the start of 2017, I really started looking into it. It was also coming up. I was into it about 2 or 3 months, and it was actually maybe because it was the anniversary of the happening by September. By September, I was fairly into it. And then on this specific site, actually, but I must admit in the beginning, it's not a user-friendly site. It's not, you know, people aren't friendly on there. It's not like a normal, nice chat site type of thing or whatever. So you have to actually sit and look through everything that's going on there. And in the beginning, it's just total chaos, actually. And I left the site quite a couple of times. But then what actually happened is, I think it was early October 2017 when it was the Las Vegas shooting that took place. And I was looking, by now you got the feeling that, okay, something else is going on here. So by September 2017, I was fairly into it by now.
So you stumbled across a platform that was talking about stuff connected to 9/11.
Well, it was called, at the time, it was called Political Incorrect. So it was not about something specific, but it was just about everything. Everything that you would just, they would just put anything on there, you know, any shooting, any whatever, they would discuss on there.
So all the so-called conspiracy theory stories are coming out.
Exactly, but you never got the feeling there. You don't, you know, if you look at a conspiracy theory, a theory comes down to something that you believe. But I can believe something, you can believe something different, but we'll never know. You can be right, I might be right, who cares, type of thing. But when it comes to these guys on the board looking at theories, it was never a theory. What they would say, to try and explain it, they would say, you got to put your source there with what you're saying, or you need to leave. That's the main thing. So it wasn't just, it was factual. It was very factual. So, okay, back to when the shooting happened in Las Vegas. And then I saw another side of the board. I logged in the morning and I was looking for the answers for other things, but I read about and I heard about the shooting, and I was wondering where could we find some more information. So I logged onto the board, and then I saw a total different side of the board. It was so organized. It was amazing. And just to explain the board quickly, it's like having a WhatsApp group. It's text messages, but you don't.
And it's on the internet.
There's nothing. It's on the internet.
Okay.
A lot of people believe was the dark web or whatever. It's nothing like that. It's a normal site that you can. Yes, there was a lot of other stuff there as well that's not for children or whatever on there. So you have to know where to go. But even within all of this, there was this discussions going on.
Okay.
So yeah, and then with this shooting, it was totally different. You could see the guys, they were using terms that we know well by now, but it was new to me. Something like false flag and terms like that. And then they were used to it, and I had to look all of this up to actually understand what's going on here.
Yes.
But the one thing
I just want to ask you, because I mean, I think that in some ways, I think that people that are new to this whole world that we see ourselves in, this great reveal, all these terms are like that people are going to have to learn them, because it's becoming fast a part of the vocab of our history. So, what is a false flag? Maybe you can tell us that.
I actually, when I wrote the book, I did some research on it, obviously, and it was happening while I was doing all of this. So it was like, capturing it real time type of thing when I wrote the book. But I actually had to go way back, and it goes way back in history, where the first, I think, documented was decades ago, where they actually made uniforms of the enemy and they've put it on their own people.
Wow.
And and it's that basic principle that what you're putting out there, whatever, it's actually totally the opposite.
Wow.
Of the fact. So, and it's a used, well-known term. And yeah, they were using it as if, everybody knows what it is. But I had to go look it up. And yeah, they were talking about the shooting as being a false flag or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you can see they, in a way, divide up in teams without anyone saying anything. But there will be guys posting some live feeds that they found on Twitter. Of actually people that's at the moment there or were there the day before type of thing, and they would post it and they would analyze this, and the one will post it and he would say he hears something in the background, it doesn't sound well, and the next thing another person will then reply to that and actually with some software took the background all the sounds and everything and analyzed it, and he would say, yeah, you can clearly hear there's more than one shooter in that clip, type of thing, So at the moment, you immediately see there's something else going on this board, and there's something else to this board. Okay.
So it's like it's like a group of people that are doing like lie detectors. They become lie detectors. They take this image that is being sold to the public as the truth. They take it and they start to debunk it and pull it apart.
Exactly, and by now we've got a term for it. It's called the hive mind. There is actually a lot of the hive mind. So there's another term for us to add to the list. It's the hive mind of a lot of anonymous people sitting there, no names, no fame, no income, no nothing, but spending hours and hours taking it apart, knowing what to do. And the one might be into sound, the next one might be a lawyer. We had I've realized there was a lot of the ex-army guys and whatever on there as well. We see them post a lot. So it's a hive mind. It's the best way to describe it. There's no other way, actually. So
So this is Q, is it? Is this how you
no,
came
no, no,
across
no.
Q, or no?
This
No.
was before Q, whatever. This is a platform that's been there for years, and people need to understand this as well. It's been there. It's been actually mentioned in documents during some of the actually elections. I believe in Obama's election. It was actually, there's a document that surfaced later on saying, you know, we can manipulate this, we can manipulate that, but the what was known then as the chance, the 4chans, we've got no idea how to handle them. They just above what we can actually manipulate. So
Oh,
it was long
interesting.
before Q. This platform was long before Q there, and it was doing its thing. And it
Oh,
will
wow.
probably be there long after Q as well. It's the hive mind. It will be there. And it was actually only at the end of October that I started seeing this guy posting, but it was different. He posted in a different way. In a sense of, normally someone would post and it would be a statement with a source, and we would discuss it. And this guy kept on posting in between, but he's just asking questions, but weird questions or relevant questions, whatever you want to call it. He would, for instance, ask, you know, who protects a president of the US normally? But let me ask you, who's protecting Trump?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like, okay, whatever. And then, but one of the guys obviously would go and say, you know what, this guy, I don't know what he's actually onto, but he's actually got a point there, because we never realized it, but it's actually not the Secret Service that's looking after Trump, protecting him. It's actually military
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. So by that, he got our interest.
Okay.
But at one stage, you were saying that but actually, what it comes down to is that Trump was asked to be president. He's part of a plan, you know, and then obviously through to the chance at that stage, I'll get to where they changed to Anons in a bit. But the chance at that time, true to them, they just said, well, you better source this or prove this or get out. We're not
Mm-hmm.
going to listen. And the one guy actually came up and he said, you know, if you're that close to Trump and you are actually what you say you are, then get him to tweet something about Wonderful Day.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody agreed. I said, yeah, that will be the proof. Otherwise, you know, we're just going to start muting you. You can actually mute someone on the board, according to the ID. So, and we were all waiting, and nothing happened, and we carried on. And obviously, I was I was very intrigued by it. So first thing the next morning, I actually logged on, and I paged back a bit, and I saw there was a post saying, "Guys, you have to look at this." Trump did post a tweet, and he included "Wonderful Day" in his tweet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was against social media. I wasn't on social media at all. And I ended up opening a Twitter account personally myself to go see for myself. And I saw it. It was there. He tweeted it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the start of Q. It was some of his first posts. He didn't post, he didn't put his name. He signs off as Q. That we've got later. But at the end, he got our attention. That's what it was about.
So do
And
you think Q is a person, or do you think it's a
no,
number of people?
no, it's a number of people. There is a team of them. They would post. You could see they will there will be someone on that will post in codes, and we've realized later on that what he's actually doing is he's talking to someone else out there, not to us on the board.
Okay.
So, but then it would be more like codes and whatever. It's as if they're testing something on the board, or I don't know what exactly. But excuse me, they and then you can actually see by, you know, the whole typing and everything that it's someone else. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next thing, there would be different crumbs and drops. And then later on, we also realized that some of them he signed off later. Then he started signing them off as Q, so we could follow him easily. Otherwise, it's just, you must understand, the board is what we call a bread, and it's got 750 messages in there. So it's 750 random messages, like being on a WhatsApp group. You don't see a number, you don't see anything. and there's just 750 messages.
Wow.
So it's crazy in the beginning, and it was very difficult to follow him as well in the beginning. And he didn't sign off as Q. But then later on, he started adding, he would say Q. He would end up with Q. So then it became a bit easier.
From what I have gathered over the years is that Q is the 17th letter in alphabet and has got something to do with the 17th level of clearance. It's like a military high level clearance into deep, you could say deep secrets that the Earth Alliance, or whatever people are calling it, that Trump has been invited to head up, along with other people like Putin and other people that are coming into this new Earth Alliance, that they have agreed to start allowing some of these secrets to come out to the public.
Yeah. Look, I'll be honest with you there, and I'll let's warn everybody about that up front. I've learned my lesson there as well. So I fairly avoid anything that I couldn't personally actually
verify,
but also, that I don't feel comfortable that we've got the answer yet. You must remember, he puts out crumbs there. There's a lot of interpretations for it, and many times he keeps on saying future will prove the past, meaning I will post it now, but watch the news. In even 2 years later, we actually find the real truth, or the real decode for it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So do you think that that's about military planning into the future? And do you think I know that they've spoken about Project Looking Glass. I don't know if you want to speak about that at all.
Let me just get back quickly to the point that I want to try and make about Q itself, and the whole earthly whatever. What I know for a fact, and that's where I leave it, is that yes, it is the 17th letter. That what we know for a fact is that Trump was actually asked to be, I like to call it the face of the movement. So it's not the brain behind it. We must understand that it's a plan that they've put in place, or started putting together the moment JFK was murdered, was assassinated. I think that was the big wake-up call for everybody good out there at that time, to see that they could actually take down the most powerful man in the world at the moment, and they can just wipe it under the carpet. And I think that's when people started realizing, the good people out there, even JFK, underestimated what he was standing up against. So what I would say, what I firmly believe, is that it is a military operation. They did make Trump part of it. They needed a face. They needed to take control over. On the board, we like to call it the little case with the little buttons in there that can send off all the nukes, the type of thing. They needed to control that. That was the main thing. And they needed to control the NSA and all of that. So that's what they needed. And they needed a face to do. But that's not the brain behind the plan, type of thing. This plan was well before Trump, started well before it. And it was formulated before. And he's playing his role in there. I wasn't a Trump fan before the election. Not at all. I wasn't into politics, as a matter of fact. But once you get into this and you understand what he actually gave up and agreed to, then you got to respect that. There's no question about it. So
absolutely. So I just want to just jump in there for a second.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's quite a story to come into and get your head around for people that are just starting out. And I also thought, like, how can military, be good and this and that, and but what I've come to understand is that there actually is a benevolent side of the military, which are very highly educated people that have the best in mind for the planet, and that they are being asked to create this new plan that is going to move in in the opposite direction of this new world order.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting, and they've called those people the white hats, haven't they? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get let's get to that, but let's just for a moment there. When it comes to the military, what also became very clear is what we need to understand is everything else was infiltrated. He calls it all the other three-letter agencies, not the people. We must understand this clearly. It's not the whole of the, what he calls the clowns or the FBI or any of the DOJ, Department of Justice, but the crucial key positions were actually compromised of all three, but and remember they operate according to other rules. You've got tribunals and all of that. It's about the country, it's about being patriots, whatever. There's a total different set of laws applying to the military, and that's the only thing that they could. Obviously there were some of the plants in there that they had to clear out, but that was the easiest one to clean out, and that's why the military was actually used as the platform. And obviously that's your power base. If at the end of the day you have to do something like they were planning, whatever, the military is key. That's obvious. Type of thing. So yes, it is. So bottom line is a military operation. The military was the cleanest part of it, and I mean we've seen so many of it over the years. Afterwards, we've seen the footage where soldiers don't understand, but they're out there in Afghanistan looking after poppy fields, loading drugs into army planes. It must have been hell for the guys actually involved in it, and it wouldn't make sense to them as well. To stand there and put your life in danger, in harm's way, to look after drugs. It wouldn't make sense. So that was the easiest one, I think, to clean out. Type of thing, but that was done first, and then I had to do all the others.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, this massive clean out process that's happening through, headed by this military operation with Trump helping, being the front guy. And what they're doing is trying to clean up some things that went massivly wrong in terms of the Earth agenda.
Yeah.
And do you want to speak a little bit about that? Like, who is this cabal? What are they made of? How did it happen? I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we can talk about that quickly. And just a quick last note on what we've just said. We must also understand, a lot of people out there, and I think some of us were guilty as well, we're saying if we don't see the arrests very soon of the high-profile people, the bad apples that we've already identified, then, there's no use. And actually on the board as well, we saw the same. They kept on asking Q, if there's no arrest going, we can't keep this movement going. We need some proof, whatever. But what we underestimated, and I think we still do, and many still do, there is we are fighting something that's been put in place over decades. That's the one side of it. We're not going to just clean this out. The other thing is it went really deep. If you have a look at how compromised everything from like he said, the three-letter agencies. Now, the effect of that is, in other words, if you got someone doing wrong out there and the police are actually covering for him and judges are covering for him and whoever is covering from the whole system is covering for it, then if you now all of a sudden, and that's how the law works, go and arrest someone and you put him into that system, he will walk away, guaranteed, if it's not cleaned out. And that is what took until now, to have that system cleaned out first before you make the smallest arrest. Otherwise the people will just walk, and once they walk, they walk.
Yeah, and it's super complicated and convoluted how it has to happen. And exactly. from what I've seen from the outside, can't be an easy job, because some of it, some of it just looks, some people will be arrested and then given, what do you call it? Like,
Yeah.
they get
Like
given like a deal, sort of, if they inform on other people, then they can get, less of a sentence. And there seems to be such a fine, like a double-edged sword, or like a, razor's edge, fine line to how to dismantle this kind of beast in a way.
And you see it all over. I mean, that's probably the best example out there at the moment is Epstein. I mean, if the island would ever, and we all know he didn't kill himself, and you see that all over social media. But at the end of the day, if you have a look at him, for instance, he's been in court, he's been found guilty, whatever, and he got house arrest, and he wasn't even put in jail. I think he was in jail for about a month or something, and then he was out. But that changed.
So Epstein is an interesting example, and maybe we can just talk about what he is symbolically. So as far as I know, and you can just tell me what you think, but the cabal that is this kind of overlord in a way that has been the operating structure of the deep state, which is made up of many aspects of society: education, banking, pharmaceuticals, everything that you can think of, media, mainstream media. A lot of them have been operating through this satanic worship. I don't know how much you know about that, but I just have understood a couple of things. The one is that pedophilia has been one way of getting many people into a kind of bribery situation. So, for example, what I think, and you can tell me what you know about Jeffrey Epstein, is that his job was to get key people all over the world to sleep with these young girls and then make sure he had evidence of that. And that became a bribery tool, so that in a way they would be able to control everybody that had done that. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, you're correct there. I mean, there's an issue about it. It goes much deeper, but it becomes also, I think, it's not for everybody to go down that rabbit hole. I said in the book, and it's the truth that once I started getting into that specific rabbit hole, went down there, it becomes very, very dark. And
it's very dark.
And in order to understand that, actually, you have to start thinking like them. There's no normal person that can go down that hole and will in any way believe what he actually sees. But we went down the hole. I was sick for days. I was about to give up. Actually, I couldn't handle it. And then somewhere you just wake up one day and decide the other way of handling this is actually turning this into motivation for, if you ever had a good reason to fight this, then this will be it. If someone walks around and gets away with it and doing that to children, what we've seen is that then that becomes your motivation. This needs to stop. And it's not one or two children, there's millions. And, we had a saying, children don't just go missing. That's the way it's been played over the years. And up to 6 million kids per year. And that's not even including who's going to keep those stats if something like Haiti happens. And we know there's so many children that disappeared there. Children don't just disappear. So if you go back to Epstein or whatever, yes, I agree with you. That was part of it. But there's also another part of rituals and drinking their blood to stay young and all of that type of stuff. It also comes into play there, because you must understand the blackmail side of it was a very small part of this. And it only involved a couple of the children, but there were millions of children involved in this over the years. And even whenever Q was on the board or whatever, there would always be an Anon asking him, what about the kids? We are doing this for the kids. We had enough. You've woken us up. We've seen what's been done to the kids. We've got to stop this. that became our mission actually for many of us, and personally for me as well. So, and it wasn't just Epstein. If you have a look at what was it, the Playboy Mansion, whatever it
Weinstein,
is.
yeah.
No. I can't remember the guy's name. It was an older guy. But the whole Playboy Mansion was set up for exactly the same thing, where the elite would be involved and in this parties, whatever, and the drugs will be flowing, whatever. And before they realize it, they are having, sleeping with children, whatever, and it's been taped. And the next thing they get orders to, this is what we need you to do. And if you don't, this is what the public will see. So that was part of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, yeah. And
But it wasn't just him. It was a whole network of it, type.
Yeah, very, very deep, the Luciferian network. And I mean, it's not such an easy topic to talk about, but I just wanted to jump into the fact, I don't know what your opinion is. There is talk at the moment about possible rescue of children from underground, the tunnels in New York. Do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, I'm careful with that as well. We haven't seen anything, but by now we also know, I'm a firm believer that it was one of the main issues that we've had was the kids, to save those kids. We know what's going on with the kids and we want them saved. It's like I said, it's a main mission. So we knew the moment this is going to happen, it was going to be one of the first things to do. Once we've saved and secured the kids, we can take it from there. That was the whole thing. So now coming back to your question, in that sense, yes, I would like to believe that as well. We've had a look at the pictures. We had a look at the ship. The ship is playing a role there. I don't know if you've seen, but there was actually a train that tried to ram one of the ships, type of thing. Weird stuff going on with all surrounding the ships and the hospitals, the makeshift hospitals. So we want to believe it is the kids. Is there something to confirm it specifically, officially? No, not at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of time because I know that some people have mentioned a possible, 10 days of darkness, and people have been speaking in different ways. Is that the internet going down? Is it communications going down? Or are we just being kept in the dark about what's happening until it's done,
I agree, and you're right there. And that's why we must remember, it's obviously not just the good guys that's been watching this board, and it was a very fine line, but they had to be very careful of what they put out there. So a lot of the stuff that they've put out there, actually, and he kept on saying it, that's what he meant with when he says, the future will prove the past. I'm putting it out there so that I can give you enough to wake people up and whatever, so that if it does happen, you can explain to them that it is under control, that it was planned, that it was part of the plan, but only then, So obviously, and he calls it's a military operation. It's about moves and counter moves. That's the way it is. It's not, everything is not going to play out by book. They have to consider any counter move as well. So yes, I would love to believe it is the case, that it is actually, we are seeing, if we put some of the stuff together, we are convinced that there is definitely something going on. We've seen, the way we deal with this is we'll have a look into it, and then we find out that, I think it was about maybe 2 years ago, that they actually started training certain divisions in the military to actually do warfare in tunnels. Now if you start putting all those pieces together, that for a fact or whatever, then it starts making sense. We know, you mentioned a couple of times the tunnels on the Epstein Island, that's where all the bad stuff went down. So we are very aware that it's happening in tunnels and underground always, type of thing. Now you add that to the military, all of a sudden it's training to have warfare there. You have the ships only, and we all of a sudden start digging into New York or whatever, and you find this whole tunnel system down there. Actually, the other day I posted where there was actually this whole conference belt down in one of those tunnels, and it's huge. The photos is, and the guy that actually wrote the article kept on saying, we weren't allowed to say where we were. We could see so many different other channels going out, type of thing. So it's this whole network there. But they weren't allowed to go there, type of thing. If you have a look at the Denver airport, I wrote quite a bit in the book about the Denver airport. You know, it was all of a sudden that airport took, I think, about 2 years longer to build and about double the cost or whatever. And a lot of the workers there actually stated afterwards that, but it's because the tunnels that they had to put in underground was taking so long. And that was not even planned or whatever type of thing. So yeah, that all
Yeah,
adds to
it's
that
very,
go
it's all very interesting in terms of, and you know what, I believe that the word apocalypse, apparently the Greek
yeah,
meaning of apocalypse means the veils,
yeah,
that are
being
coming
lifted,
down,
yeah,
the veils are
yeah,
being lifted. Yeah, and I do think that, you know, after years of following Q and just watching the digs, as they call it, into, you know,
yeah,
pulling apart these pieces of truth and surfacing like clues and hints and pearls of wisdom that have been hidden from us. There's
yeah,
been so much that I have learned about the hidden history of humanity, like the true
yes.
system that we've been living inside of. It's just been mind-boggling for me.
You know, I put a video out there the other day, and I mean, Q mentioned as well, and I've put in the book there that he said, you know, the Matrix, the movie Matrix. I wonder where they got that idea from, type of thing, you know. So, and if you actually revisit the movie itself, and that's why we actually use the term being red pilled,
Mm-hmm.
because you've got a choice there. When Morpheus sits down with Neo and he says to him, you know, I've got a red pill and a blue pill for you. Blue pill, you take the blue pill, you go back to your dream world and believe whatever you want to believe, you know,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing that's pulled over your face. And when you ask what is a matrix, he says it's what's been pulled over your face as the truth, you know, to keep you from actually seeing the truth. And that's what a red pill's about. You know, we've also got the lions that we use, because the saying is, if you the truth is like a lion, you don't have to defend it, you just have to free it.
Mm.
And that's what it's about, you know. And everybody, a lot of the people, especially in the beginning, kept on saying, but how does it differ? Now you just following Q and whatever. And let's make it clear, from the word go, there's no ways the Anons would just follow Q. You know, they would, every drop that he, especially in the beginning, that he put out there, they would try and prove him wrong. That was the first approach,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. They wouldn't just accept it. Even today, you know, they will take him on and say, well, and he would, later on, we will realize, okay, this is actually what he meant. So the type of thing that you actually see, and you know, we keep on calling it the cabal and the deep state or whatever. But I think what's also important to people out there is that if you actually, well, for me personally, if you want to understand whatever, you have to start mentioning the names. You have to dig into it, and you have to find the names, because at the moment you start finding the names and you actually start putting it together, um, I said in a book, I think it was near the ending, I said, you know, if someone mentioned, and we've all heard it over the years, the Illuminati, and there's like this handful of people that controls the world, whatever. It's a crazy thought, you know.
Mm.
I would say to people, maybe if you have 3 or 4 people controlling the finances in South Africa, okay, well, okay, I can start digging into that, and I might believe that. If you're telling me a handful of people are controlling the world, it's ridiculous.
Mm.
But once you start understanding, and I think that's what he did, he put all the pieces together, he painted the bigger picture. And once you start doing that and you connect the names to it, then you realize it's also, I was having this conversation the other day and I said to someone, for them, it was like making a Christmas pudding for 500 years, you know, the same recipe. By now, you just do it, you know, it's like freaking, it just comes natural. And if you have a look at how they did it, it was the same game over and over. Once they
Mm-hmm.
realize what they get out of a war, how they need to do it, how they get countries involved into it, whatever, you can take it and it's a blueprint onto the next one, onto the next one.
So
You
what
know,
is the
it's no
formula?
difference.
What is, and Johan made, oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is, if you wanted to talk about the COVID-19 situation, I'm not sure if you want to talk about that. in
Um, uh,
terms of what you see happening in relationship to this formula?
okay. Look, we must understand two things here, and when I have a look at it, because there's a lot of confusion out there, obviously. One is that I don't think even us that was quite involved in this and clearly understood what it was going to take to disassemble this whole Sikh network type of thing. We were always screaming and asking, when are we seeing this arrest or that arrest, whatever. But there was so much more to this, and we must have imagined it actually. If you think that, the plan was written in 1776, signed off. We're in 2020 now, and this is the final phase. It's the last couple of years. Q even said it's a 16-year plan, and Obama was the first 8 years. So we are literally, in other words, in the last 4 years of this. So firstly, what I would say is what we need to understand is, one, that this is a military operation. Two, we are seeing two different sides of this. And I even said, if I ever write to follow up on the book, one of the things that I'll have to clear up, or even go into detail, is that we need to understand, we misunderstood, most of us, well, I did personally, misunderstood in the beginning that they were actually taking down the plot against humanity. That's what I understood. That's what it sounded like, and this is what we saw, and maybe that's what we wanted to believe, what I wanted to believe. But at the end of the day, what I've come to realize since is that it was about the control. It was never about the plot. So in other words, we must keep in mind, we still see the plot playing out. Especially we in South Africa, we can see the plot playing out here. We can see the final years coming up here. So the plot is still playing out. And the way to actually stop the plot was to take control, and the whole thing will implode. So if you come back to our current situation, I think my view of it is that we are seeing two sides of it being played out here. I said in the book something we've never realized. World War III started years ago. We were waiting for it or whatever. It started years ago. People are all of a sudden taking pills like you don't believe, they're sicker, whatever. It started years ago. It was just the final phase to trigger the final depopulation. That was what we actually thought World War III would be, but it's not. It already started. So we must keep in mind that these are the final years. This is the final phase, and that's what we're seeing played out. Now, if you consider and you believe the fact that there's actually a plan against it, and it's activated, and it's fairly advanced at this stage, I think it would be logic to say it must have been much way worse by now than we are experiencing. That's the one side of it. Another thing is the total lockdown that Trump started with, immediately putting pressure on the rest of the world. I don't think that was planned in such an early stage for especially the rest of the world. You can see they were caught off guard. And you must also keep in mind, let's say we have a scenario that we have local puppets in control, and all of a sudden the money is drying up. They're not getting the orders anymore, but they are still going according to the plot, but there must be some confusion on what they need to do, type of thing. So we see a lot out there saying hospitals are empty. So I would say what we see on the one hand is the plot playing out. We see the typical stuff we know by now, that the media is lying about it. They're putting out misinformation. They're changing it. We've had various posts on it saying that they use the same pictures of even from movies and saying it's in Italy where we've got all this. Now, the moment you want to look at that, then are you saying people aren't dying there, whatever? I won't go that far. I won't say people aren't dying from this. I see a lot of the videos out there saying the virus is not real, obviously. But why do you say that? Because the hospitals are empty. or maybe because there's not so many ill than the news is telling us. I don't think you should go that far. I think what they are still going according to the narrative that they've been given, and it's been put in place. There wasn't no plan B for them to say, well, Trump's going to start a lockdown, and all of a sudden the whole world's going to lock down. It's something that we couldn't have ever imagined before it actually happened. So that makes me think that it was actually to stop. It was pressure. Trump does the lockdown. All of a sudden, even South Africa, we see lockdown, and it was actually stopped. And it's something we can't even imagine it. It's the first time in our history, I believe, that something like this takes place. And I think it was the pressure and whatever to stop the spread of it. But I would be very wary, as a matter of fact, to say the virus is not real and it's not killing people. He said so many times, we are at war. People need to understand this. We are at war. I see a lot of cries, but our businesses won't see. What happens during a war? People suffer, people die, millions of people. This was the plan. We mustn't forget that. This was a plan, and people will suffer. People will die. So I'd be very reluctant to say the virus is just, I don't think it is what we are told it is. I don't think the amount of people or whatever, because you can see on the one side, the story is playing out according to the narrative. And that was how many people were supposed to be sick or whatever, and the chaos in hospitals overrun and whatever. But the lockdown stopped a lot of that. But
yeah, so we're seeing clashing kind of paradigms in a way.
Yeah.
And it's
that confuses
so
us.
multi-leveled in a way that at this point, it's difficult to make out what's going on. But I think
the way I see it is exactly the way I explain now, because I was also sitting there, Q kept on saying, they're in control. Well, if you're in control, are you then actually the ones responsible for this, whatever? And it's not. They're fighting about the control, so to get this thing to implode. We must never underestimate what we're fighting. There's a spiritual side for it for sure as well, but there's a physical side of it that we underestimate, and we must stop doing that. I think that's a big thing. We are in World War III. It started long ago, and this is it. There's no question, and it's no fear mongering or anything, whatever. I mean, we in the next couple of weeks are going to see this more and more, and I think going to realize it more and more. But I keep on saying to the people out there in the groups that we discuss, whatever, at the end of the day, we must try and imagine what it would have been if it wasn't for Q and the plan and the movement against it. I think then we would have waited. We would have been queuing up for the vaccines and all of that, and we're not going into that right now, because I see a lot of issues out there, and like I mentioned before, you can even get arrested now all of a sudden. It's so weird. We pick up so many times in the media, and we prove it, that they actually put disinformation out there. But now all of a sudden, if civilians are doing it, whatever, they're being arrested all over.
Yeah, so, it's quite a massive thing to get your head around, and I've kind of seen it almost like what do you call it, almost like a purging of you could call it like a demonic force out of the planet, and we've all got our own demons, really, that we've also got a purge of fear and just following things without finding our own truth and all sorts of things. So I do see the mirror of the world as a mirror to some extent of what we are also doing within ourselves, because we have been just blindly following society for the most part, and not fully taking responsibility for dismantling our own massive internal structures and lies and kind of internalized.
It's very true, and it's one thing that once you've taken your Red Bull or whatever, you actually, I don't know if I mentioned in the book, but you sit here sometimes and you see the stuff, whatever, and you can't even imagine anymore how asleep you were. Staring at the stuff. If you look at the movies or whatever, it was their favorite place to throw it back in your face. What we're going to do to you, how it's going to be and whatever. They kept on throwing it back at us and actually putting it in our face. And we just accepted it. It's like being, oh, that was a nice movie, type of thing. So, yeah, it's like our favorite saying lately is that, the world's not falling apart. We're lifting the veil of what's going on, and we're fighting it. That's what's going on.
Yeah. We are
It's not
moving
falling
into
apart. We need to realize that.
we're moving into a much more awakened paradigm.
Yeah.
And taking more
For
responsibility for where we want things to go and which direction, which is, very important.
Yeah. No,
So
sure.
I'm thinking that there's so much to talk about. We could talk for hours, but maybe we should do a follow-up because there's many layers and, lovely areas that are interesting to go into. Is there anything that you'd like to add, maybe where to buy your book or how to get hold of your book? Is anything that you feel is important before we close?
Maybe we'll put a link in it and afterwards, Amanda. That would maybe be the easiest. It is on Amazon, but obviously with the lockdown, I don't think they're actually gonna. On our local site, the courier's actually shut down.
Yes,
So
that's what I was saying. If it's on Kindle, people can download it and read it.
But it is on Amazon on Kindle. We've actually signed it up with the local, I guess I shouldn't mention the name, but there's a lot of resistance that we get. I was very proud to have it on the local site actually as a, what you call a pay, and then they print it for you. So I don't have to carry the stock, and I was all excited about it. And they listed it, and I've got a direct link. But if you search on the site for the book itself, or
and what is the site and what is the name of the book?
The book is Band of Anons. The site is on Takealot, but the problem with it is that if you search for it, you won't find it in any of the categories. They just won't list it. But that's what we're up against. But it's not going to keep us from getting the message out. But there is a direct link to it. But actually, at the moment, if you order it from the direct site, and it's www.sa-anon.co.za, we've got a color. We put the pictures in color.
Okay, great. Well, I'll put that link at the bottom of the video as well.
Yeah, and I'll just send you the one for Amazon as well if there's listeners out there from anywhere else. And it is on Kindle. Unfortunately, once you sign up for it on Kindle, you're not allowed to put the ebook version out on any other platform. So that is only available on Amazon itself.
Okay, wonderful.
But sure, and maybe let's see how it goes. If people got some questions, whatever, we can maybe list that and we can see and take it from there. Not a problem.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we can do a follow-up that can be live, and we can listen to, we can have some questions, or just make a list of questions, because there is so much to learn. So we'll definitely do a follow-up with you.
Yeah, not a problem, and thanks for your effort as well.
Thank you so much for your time, and I absolutely love your book. It's well worth reading, and it's just so exciting that you've taken the time to be this seeker of the truth.
We just got to do this. We don't have a choice. Once you understand the basics, whatever, you'll know. You just got to do this. It's a choice between the good and evil. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and each person has to do it for themselves, because without that, it just seems like somebody else's crazy story.
Very true. Very true. And a lot of it is crazy. I think we made a meme about it, saying that, it's so easy to fool someone, but people don't want to understand or hear that they've been fooled, especially if you tell them the truth, and the truth is like science fiction, They just, you don't get it. But anyways, you stay well.
All right.
Thanks a million again.
Lovely chatting to you, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers. Keep well.
Bye. Bye.